Hello, everyone, and welcome to Space. Obviously, Andrew's going to edit that part out, and we'll start again. Okay,
that's for the blooper reel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the pilot episode of Space Corp Directive 17412. I'm your host, John, and with me today is Andrew.
Good to see you.
And Joe.
Hello.
Hello. And I'll just start now by telling you that before today, Joe hadn't seen even a single second of Red Dwarf. And I don't know what Joe thought of the pilot of Red Dwarf, but I'm very keen to find out. And I hope his face doesn't give it away. I'd be really. I'm quite excited. I'm actually quite excited. We've done this. I've done this before in podcasts where you have someone in who considers himself to be quite an aficionado of a show, and I get someone else that's never seen it before, and it's an absolute roulette as to whether they go, "That was the best thing I've ever seen in my life," or "My eyes." You don't. So I'm quite excited about it. But anyway, this is the pilot episode. And pretty much we're going to be talking about all things Red Dwarf. We're not going to do it in any kind of coherent structural order. We're going to be talking about specific episodes. We'll spend episodes talking about specific characters. There's books that have been written. We might just go off on tangents. So don't expect it just because today's first episode is going to be about the first episode, that the second episode will necessarily be about the second episode. I don't know what's going to happen. It's quite exciting. We're going to do it. We're going to do top 10 episodes. We're going to do this, that, that. I don't know. It depends on the mood I'm in on the day that we record, if I'm going to be honest with you. But we thought that there was no better way to start a show about Red Dwarf than by discussing the first episode, the beginning of the show, which was ironically called The End. So that's where we're at. So as I said, Joe hasn't seen it before. Andrew probably watched it about 50 years ago, like I did when it first came out.
Probably about 17412 times.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, I suppose my personal experience with Red Dwarf is I used to watch it with my best friend Douglas. He was obsessed with Red Dwarf. He got me obsessed with Red Dwarf. We used to just go right to his house and watch. Do you guys remember VHS videotapes?
Yeah.
I remember recording the episodes live when they were aired on BBC Two, the terrestrial channel over in the UK for Joe, at 9 p.m. And it would be me, my dad, my older brother, and we'd hit the record button and we'd be sitting there going, "Boys from the Dwarf." Now imagine a 5-year-old fat me with Harry Potter style glasses doing that. No wonder I got the shit kicked out of me in school.
And unfortunately, it followed you into your adult life as well. People are still kicking the shit out of you to this day, Andrew, aren't they?
Yeah, now it's just verbally rather than physically.
Absolutely. But I mean, do you know, I'm the exact same. I constantly get people just looking at me saying, "John, do better."
Well, that's a bit harsh, man. Because in fairness, like, we've met because you do like a lot of like comedy, like hosting, and a lot of stand-up comedy, and I've had the pleasure of being on one of your like stand-up nights, like the Panopticon, where you were hosting, and oh my god, I thought you were on cocaine, but in a good way, because you were so energetic. You were so fantastic. Yeah, well, there's a lot of ways, but we'll talk about that in another episode.
Absolutely.
Ironically, because Craig Charles is the master of cocaine.
He is the master of cocaine, absolutely.
But you were just so energetic. You were so positive. Like the way you interacted with the crowd and the audience, like you were so engaging. Like you're the only person I could see that God was able to take his shirt off and not get huffled out by security. You've done absolutely brilliant. Like it was such a great night. Everybody loved it, and it was just a pleasure being on the stage for you, man.
No, thank you very much. That means a lot. It was a great, do you know, and nights like Joe, we'll talk about the show in a minute, but right now, Andrew,
we warned you, tangents are our thing.
This is just a kind of we're just jacking each other off now. This is what's happening. So
it's obligatory. You got to spend the first 5 minutes inflating each other's ego. It's cool. No,
as long as that's all we inflate, That's and everyone's happy. But I've actually, it was a really good night from start to finish. Everybody smashed it. Sometimes you go to comedy nights and everybody's just great. And when you're a host in a situation like that, it's just so much easier. You almost just walk on and you ride the wave that everyone else has created. You got to go, this is great, blah, blah, blah. I have had friends that have grown up enjoying cocaine, and they have every time said to me, John, I would hate to actually see you on cocaine, because this is what you're like when you're drinking water. We don't need this in our lives. But anyway, sorry, right, again, tangents. Right, so anyway, we're here to talk about Red Dwarf. We're only 6 minutes in. Obviously, anyone that's watching this will see the serious amount of editing that Andrew does for the show when they go, well, it only looks like 1.5 minutes to me. I'm just going to create kind of timestamps throughout this to make your life more difficult. Andrew, you kind of go, what 4 minutes did they cut out of this show? They
Not
can
at
never
all.
be heard.
Most things I don't. Most things I like to keep in, because
it
just shows. Sure. This shows the banter and the camaraderie that we all have, and that's how people go, I want to be a part of this. Because if you just show the polished stuff, I mean, Joe can testify himself, because Joe is a professional content creator. When he agreed to be part of this, I was like, holy fuck, we're actually onto something here, because he creates stuff for a living and he's damn good at it. And I was like, right, why have you joined up with us? So he was like, I like your style and I like how it goes and like the flow of your podcast. No two are the same. And I thought, well, that's because I just don't edit unless I'm told to. Unless someone says to me, like, you have timestamps here and here, please take this out. Please take this out.
Remove this. I'm a bit intimidated now that I've heard that Joe is like really professional, and then I've suddenly kind of and I just walked in kind of going, do you know, I don't know what's going to happen. Let's find out.
Well, what would make you more intimidated if I said that Joe is a professional content creator, which he is, or he is a deeply religious man? Which point would you go, right, what do I say or not say here that won't literally get me crucified?
I'm more intimidated. If he's going to crucify me for my religious beliefs, then he's clearly been misreading the whole text.
Yeah.
I'm more intimidated with the content creation. But I've brought up very religiously, so I can circumnavigate my way.
Well, we all have a good banter about it as well. I'm just waiting because you know the type of kind of religious metaphors that come up later on in this show, and I'll be very interested to see what Joe thinks when it gets to that point.
Even, do you know, weirdly enough, even in this episode, they brush on that, but we'll get to that. But there's a point where they get for a show that was made in the 80s in the UK with a laugh track. There's a lot of kind of deep philosophical and religious and political message kind of contained within. So it's quite interesting. I think on the surface of it, you don't necessarily see that, but hopefully we'll get more in depth about it. I think it discusses religion quite deeply, but I don't think it ever kind of slags off religion per se. It possibly points out certain aspects of how people can misinterpret things religiously, but we'll get to that as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I get too deep right now, you know. As long as you cut out the bit at the beginning where I managed to unsuccessfully say the title of the show, it'd be amazing if you could. If I say anything else throughout this, if you could just cut that little first 20 seconds out where I managed to stumble over "Welcome to Space Corp Directive 174." I can't even do it now, right? Okay,
there we
go.
It's easy for you to say, man. It's just the name of your show. That's all.
In fairness, like YouTube, even they didn't like the fact I put numbers in the title of the show, so that's why on YouTube it says Space Corp Directive Ginger Toupee.
Oh right, I did notice that. I did see that.
So for Joe, one thing you find out throughout Red Dwarf is that you find out about the Space Corp directives. Some are, legitimate, like official directives, and some are just the total P-take. Like you have ones that are, you don't have oral sex and zero gravity. And then This specific one, 17412, is no officer of the Space Corps should ever be caught reporting for work wearing a ginger toupee. So obviously, it's ginger media. That's where it came about. But YouTube don't like the fact that I'm putting numbers in the title of it. So on YouTube, it has to be Space Corp Directive ginger toupee. So I'm going to put it up as a wee poll amongst the audience members and amongst the community and go, do you prefer the number or the actual words? And then we'll use that going forward. And that might make John's life a little bit easier, so he doesn't need to say the numbers.
I'm absolutely fine saying the numbers. I'll get there in the end. I'm a data analyst in my day job, so if I can't say numbers, then, well, my organisation's in a lot of trouble. Space Corp Directive 17412. There we go.
There we go.
All right, welcome to the pilot episode of the show where we're talking about the pilot. You can cut out the first 10 minutes. We could just start there. So we'll do the bit at the beginning where I say, welcome to Space Corp Directive 17412. And I say we're discussing the pilot. We could just ditch this first 10 minutes. We haven't even talked about the show yet.
Oh, we have, my friend, just in most ways. But I think the best way to start is asking Joe what he thought of the episode coming from not only an international audience, but like a newbie to the show itself. So you did watch, obviously, the pilot. What were your initial thoughts?
So you guys, so we're in this group chat, and you guys are like, it's a parody of Star Trek: The Next Generation, set in the 80s, or made in the 80s rather.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, Sammy, I love British comedy. I always have. This show got about 10 minutes in, and I'm like, what in the hell am I watching? The best part is I being an avid Trek fan, watching this show take the absolute piss out of sci-fi was wonderful, absolutely phenomenal. The one thing that popped into my head that I wanted to ask you guys: when did this come out in relation to Doctor Who?
It came out. It came out years after Doctor Who started. Yeah. So this actually came out the year before Doctor Who was axed for the first time.
The official air date was the 15th of February 1988. It originally was meant to air back in 87, but there was a technician strike which scuppered it. It had the most horrendous bad luck in pre-production, trying to get it off the ground, between casting issues and whether or not they were going to gel, and then, like I said, the aforementioned technician strike, and it finally was able to air on the 15th of February 1988. I wasn't even 1 year old when it came out, and it's something that we were talking about in Star Trek: Next Generation when they had their 10th anniversary of the show. Patrick Stewart had hosted a 10-year anniversary special. And he was obviously filming The Next Generation when it aired, and he was alerted about this show. And he started watching it, and he was so appalled that he was about to phone his lawyer to sue them. Something happened that made him laugh, so he stopped. And he hung up the phone. And started watching it, and he started to realize what it was, and he started laughing at it more and more, and was. Then by the end of the run of Star Trek: The Next Generation, he actually said that he wished that there was more type of comedy from Red Dwarf that they could have incorporated into Star Trek: Next Generation, because it was so grounded and so serious. Yeah. And he was like, I just wish we could have had some more fun with it. And it was...
When you see a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff in Star Trek: The Next Generation, they clearly had a great time making it.
Oh yeah, they were ripping the piss out each other constantly. It was fantastic.
And there's lots of comedic stuff in Star Trek: The Next Generation. But do you know to me and I realize that we're going to end up doing another podcast off the back of this when we all realize that we're all Trekkies as well.
That's already lined up, my friends.
Yeah,
that's already. I'm lining that up for any type of Star show. And also, since we are talking about shows. Joseph is Shell Shock TMNT, and the shirt that I am wearing. Don't know if you can see, but you can see the skull.
Yep.
I got that in a TMNT look crate, and I was like, I'm wearing it today so I can show Joe.
Nice.
The thing, to me, the big difference, and I love the original Star Trek, and of course, weirdly enough, when you talk about the kind of Star Trek franchise right now, you'll see that there's stuff like Star Trek Lower Decks, the kind of animation that they've got out right now.
Yeah,
possibly takes quite a bit from Red Dwarf, in that you're looking at the people at this kind of level that are making the ship run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's real. I mean, that's only been out for a couple of years now. So that's like Star Trek almost taking a beat from Red Dwarf, if you will. And that you've got these people that are kind of making sure that the ship kind of runs the way it's supposed. I know Red Dwarf basically only has this as a basic premise. And then obviously something happens quite significantly in the first episode, which kind of throws that open. But when you watch stuff like Star Trek, weirdly enough, Star Trek was probably a little better at it than Star Trek The Next Generation. And that you did see people like the yeoman and everything kind of making sure that, everything, you almost saw the kind of admin and stuff that was happening in the background more in the 60s version than you did see in The Next Generation. But one of the big differences for me was Star Trek looked like it was fun making it. It was ridiculous. A lot of the premise of the 1960s was more ridiculous. And I hate to say it because I love everybody that was in the original Star Trek. The thing about the Star Trek Next Generation was that suddenly they got good actors in. And I think William Shatner's phenomenal in Star Trek. I think Leonard Nimoy's phenomenal. I think DeForest Kelly's phenomenal. I think Walter Koenig. I think everybody's great in it. But every character in it seems quite caricaturish. And then you got somebody. Patrick Stewart's a Shakespearean actor, right? And they get Patrick Stewart in, and they're doing this. And obviously, stuff like Data is clearly almost a kind of stand-in for Spock, but with a lot more kind of the big difference being that he's quite intrigued by human nature and he's pushing towards it rather than. So, but you've got that, but you've got these people that you're just going, oh shit, the difference here is that these people can genuinely act. And I think as a consequence of that, people watch Star Trek Next Generation and think that it's somehow less fun, but it isn't. It's great. It's just.
No. Well, I mean, John Delancey's Q, that just, well, as Joseph says for his show, because he was a chef's kiss, that is perfect casting because he was just so bonkers.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think if there were ever
choose the scenery off the walls every single time he's on. And John, I'm right there with you. When you look at TNG versus the original series, there's a gravitas that Patrick Stewart obviously automatically brings to the screen, and this whole ensemble is so the puzzle pieces just fit in such a way that the original series, it's almost like you grabbed a couple of different puzzles and tried to jam the pieces together for the original series, and everything's over the top and everything's larger than life and all of that kind of stuff that just is so schlocky in the best possible way.
Well, for sure.
It's funny that you drew those comparisons between Lower Deck and this show, because I saw some of Lower Deck in this show as I was watching it, and same thing with the Orville. It's a different type of parody show from Star Trek that airs in the States.
Yeah, it was so funny with the Orville though, because it started off as the parody, and then it was I always remember the third episode. Well, after they had their child, and it was like this all-male society, and they go, "Oh wait, it's a girl."
Yeah.
Well, and then that was when all of a sudden it went, right, we can go serious now.
Yeah.
And then it goes serious. Yeah, and it goes serious, and it just runs with it. The Orville is fantastic, absolutely beautiful. Like, it was so well done. Like, and you just tell it's Seth MacFarlane. He just Star Trek pours out of him. Like, in fact, he got the entire cast on Family Guy. It was one of the best episodes that I'd ever watched. The first time I heard Patrick Stewart say the F word was on Family Guy, and I was like, did that actually happen? I rewound it about 3 times to make sure it was legit. Because he just sounds like, he doesn't do that. He's Jean-Luc. And then I watched American Dad and went, oh shit, he does so much more.
Star Trek fans said that the Orville was one of the best Star Trek shows they've ever seen.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really good, and I love all iterations of Star Trek. I really do, in very different ways. Again, maybe when I worded in the group chat, I don't even. Red Dwarf definitely came out around about the same time as Star Trek. I don't think it was consciously parodying it, really, but there was definitely.
It took elements, I think,
of
different sci-fi shows, and kind of merged them together, because it was like, you look at Lister.
Sorry, say that.
You look at Lister, the prime example, like the main kind of antagonist, like in all forms of life, he is a bum. He is a hobo. Like, he's just on a spaceship being a hobo. But he is the most morally conscious human that is out there. Like, he has a very strong moral code, and we find that out more obviously as the series progresses. But you tell straight from the get-go. Like, because his conscience is what sparks all this off. They want to get the cat because they're like, it's not been through quarantine. We need to check it, but it'll be killed as a result. And he's like, well, what's in it for the cat?
Yeah, absolutely, which is a great kind of central ethos.
Yeah, so it's the whole point of like morals versus orders. It's like, right, do you want to go into stasis and lose your wages? It's like, no. But do you want to hand over the cat? No. We'll make your choice. And his choice is, I'll take the stasis. So I'm not telling you where the cat is.
For sure. And that's very, and it's not apparent, and we'll get to that because I've obviously got notes. We're 22 minutes in and I haven't touched any of the notes yet, which is always wonderful. So
it's what we do.
Yeah, no, for sure. But well, I was going to actually comment on the fact that you can, I mean, they've made something like the equivalent of 12 seasons of this show, and then
12 seasons in a movie,
a mini series, which was unofficially dubbed the 13th season. And it's really weird. The show, if you actually look at what happens, in my opinion, and Andrew can probably jump in, Joe, obviously, you've seen one episode, so you're just going to have to take my word for it on this. But they actually, and a lot of sci-fi shows do this, but I think Red Dwarf do it in extremis, whereas they almost create the MacGuffin of the week. So they almost, it doesn't matter what the episode is about, and you realize that it's a character piece and it's how the people react to what's happening. So really, the first episode isn't about the fact that everybody dies. It's how Lister reacts to that and what happened and blah, blah, blah. There's other episodes that might involve time travel. There's stuff that involves the Kennedy assassination. There's loads of stuff coming up. And it's almost like kind of going, we'll put these people into this scenario and see how they react to it. And of course, you get American TV shows like Seinfeld. And one of the things that makes Seinfeld work, and I'm just about to flip this on its side, but one of the reasons Seinfeld works more than some other sitcoms in some people's eyes, it's not necessarily the case, is the fact that there is absolutely nothing in the way of character development. Like, George is as much of an arsehole at the end of season 9 as he was at the beginning of season 1, and nobody seems to learn from the mistakes and blah blah blah. And on the surface of it, and this is where I put it to you. You've got these characters that are, to all intents and purposes, quite caricaturish. You've got Lister is a slob, the cat is vain. You've got Holly, who just seems to come off as a bit peculiar and an idiot on account of the fact that he's been in his own for 3 million years. I'm trying not to give Joe spoilers. You've got Rimmer, who's an absolute kind of by-the-book Jobsworth, who's not actually worth his salt and is by far comes off as the weakest of all the characters.
Yeah, he's a smeghead.
Rimmer, as an aside, Rimmer's my favourite character. I'm just telling you that, and hopefully over the next 1,000 episodes, I'll try to explain to you why. But the thing about it, the big thing to me is that there's it looks like there's zero character development in these characters when you watch it, and there's something quite significant, and I won't get into any detail right now. There's something quite significant that happens at the end of season 6. And season 6, Rimmer reacts in a very specific way that season 1 Rimmer wouldn't have. But you've spent 6 years thinking he hasn't changed, but you're not surprised when he reacts to this specific thing. And I'm not going to. There's people watching this that will have seen the show and will know what I'm talking about. But there's there's a point where Rimmer does something that he would never have done in the first episode, and you've spent 6 years thinking he hadn't changed, and they'd led you to believe. It also comes as no surprise because it's been so subtle and so intangible, and it happens with all of them that these people just slightly change in ways that you don't even. It's like when you watch kind of slow-mo kind of photography type stuff, and things are changing, and you don't realize at the time, and later on it makes perfect sense. And it's the only way I can describe it. It's the character development. It's so subtle and so brilliant that it kind of knocks you for 6 when it happens. And that's all.
And the way I like that though, John, is like everybody expects rapid change with character development because you see it in TV shows, you see it in movies, like how quickly like character development can change. In real life, characters don't change that much.
We don't.
Well, we have once we've got our kind of base parameters, we're there essentially most of our lives. But we make little changes slowly but surely as things go on. Like for example, like I would cry at the drop of a hat when I was a kid, like because I was very, very emotional, really overly sensitive, like to everything that was going on around me. But as life kind of knocked me out of it, I'm still emotional and I'm proud to be an emotional guy, but I don't cry at the drop of a hat anymore because I learned to swear. So now, like, so for example, like when you're a kid and you fall and you scrape your knee, I'm using my kid as a prime example because he did that this week. He was crying his eyes out. Well, it's understandable because he doesn't know how to channel those emotions. Yeah. If I fall at the time of this recording, I'll be 30, 35, I'll be 36 when it goes out. If I fall and scrape my knee, all the swear words are going to come flying out of my mouth. And with the occasional, and I won't cry. But I would have back then. So over time, slowly but surely, things change. Well, it's not a random, like all of a sudden, boom, I have changed. I am now a different person.
Yeah.
You eke it out as you go along. And that's why I loved Red Dwarf. It was ever so subtle changes going through. And the thing that really annoyed me about the series 6 ending was that there was an alternative ending, which really put a stamp on that growth in Rimmer. And they threw it away for it. And they threw it away for a cliffhanger. And I was so angry when I found out because we had to wait 4 years to find out this fucking cliffhanger when they had it ready made. But it didn't get made for 4 years for the conclusion because Craig Charles got done for cocaine.
Yeah, he did. That's right.
So raging.
You can't blame Chris Barry for that. But honestly, we'll get to all this.
Definitely.
What have I signed up for?
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, Joe, because we are talking about like the actual the cast of characters, what did you make of the characters themselves in this episode?
So coming from the media world and watching this and having a million different fandoms, I thought from a structure standpoint, the episode was brilliantly structured to highlight the characters that were highlighted. The way that they pare down the cast to a couple of people that each person really embodies their spot, I thought was very well done. I think for something like this, when this show starts, right, and it's got the guy painting Red Dwarf on the side of the vessel, and immediately I'm like, okay, it's like, that's why I gave the look that I gave when you said it's not a straight parody. I'm like, I'll take your word for it as the show goes on, because this first episode seemed like it was pretty on the nose. But you don't expect a show like that to have characters that seem like they would be any kind of relatable. And it's this guy that almost seems like a fish out of water in this regimented environment that is led more by his heart than by a commanding officer giving him orders. And I really dug that, because it showed humanity in an absolutely nonsensical environment. You know what I mean? The way that everybody dies and it just flips on a dime halfway in between the episode. And you realize that the moral victory was there, even if it did cost the lives of these other people. And if you allow for it to ask those questions, then suddenly you have something that's hilarious. I thought the comedy in the show, like I said, I love British comedy. So this hit all of the right beats for me. It gave me serious IT Crowd vibes, but like mixed with Monty Python in all of the best ways. That you don't like in the midst of all of that, in the midst of a laugh a minute, in the midst of ridiculous situations and a cat that evolves into a guy looking like James Brown with fangs. The whole
that is
nine
a
yards.
brilliant analogy. Brilliant.
That you don't expect a lot of depth to that, but there really is a lot of depth with these characters, to the point where I have the entire series now, and I'm like, how in the blue hell are they going to stretch this out for 12 seasons? Like, how is there this much of this show? But there was enough meat on the bone that now I'm going to go and watch through the entirety of the series to see what happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And one thing you'll learn very quickly, Joe, and John can back this up, continuity goes right out the window.
Yeah, it does.
Sometimes it needs to. Sometimes, especially when you've got a flavor of the week, it's just better to not hold yourself to the weight of continuity.
Yeah, the best part is that they embrace that as well,
Yeah,
and so did the writers. Yeah, they thrive on it. Like at some points, like somebody will say, that was how I had my appendix out twice, and then later on in another series, they remove somebody's inflamed appendix. You go, hold on a minute, you said in the previous series that they'd already lost the appendix. How the feck has he got a new one? So they. And they have all these questions that, they're sci-fi conventions and that, and they just go, make what you want. Yeah. Well, we don't care. We're making the episodes as long as you're enjoying them. We enjoy it. And from an American perspective, I've got to ask this: did you know that Danny John Jules, who played the cat, isn't actually American?
No,
he's from London. So it was a put on accent, but I've always wanted to ask an American if they thought it was like a fake American accent and could tell, or if it was a really good American accent.
No, I thought it was a legit American accent.
Yeah. He is. Nice. He's in the film Little Shop of Horrors.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Was he in Roots as well, Danny John Jules?
Is he? I didn't know that.
I think he is. I'm not entirely sure. So don't quote me on it, just in case I get sued.
Yeah, we might have to remove this bit.
Oh no, I'll keep it in because it falls on me, not on you guys. But he's been in lots of stuff, and he's had also different accents. Like he said, his own accent. He's had American accent in this. Like he's had San Marie accent because he was known very well for a British crime drama, Death in Paradise.
Death in Paradise.
Well, he was in a good few seasons of
Comedy
that.
drama.
What? Yeah, which he actually got his character wrote out of to go back and film Red Dwarf.
That's right.
And it's something that I love about this series because the bond with the actors grows over time, and you see it, and they have become a band of brothers.
Yeah.
By this point, to the point where Danny John-Jones has a regular spot on a BBC show, in a place where it's absolutely beautiful weather, tropical. And they go, look, we get commissioned for 2 series to come back to London and film in a dingy studio. You coming back? And he went, in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Because he's like, Red Dwarf gave me my career. And it just shows the loyalty that they all have to this.
Yeah, no, they are like a family.
Yeah, and it makes it so much better because Craig Charles, who plays Lister, and Chris Barry, who played Rimmer, at this point in time in the pilot, fucking hated each other.
Yeah.
They did not get on. It wasn't a case of like they were like, that they were going to go outside and beat the shit out of each other. It's just they came from different backgrounds, they had different styles, and they just didn't gel. So the animosity at the start is 100% genuine. They're ready to kill each other at a moment's notice. But that has grown and evolved over time, and now off stage, they are like brothers.
Yep, it's strange because obviously when I was watching this when I was 10 years old or whatever, I had no idea. I just thought really good actors. And I do genuinely think they were really good actors because they do a really good job of clearly disliking each other, but having this amazing chemistry that you can only have from pretending that you dislike each other. Yeah. Because you watch this and it doesn't, but there was serious animosity. If you get the DVDs or the Blu-rays or whatever the kids are watching these days, they specifically talk on the commentaries. The commentaries are wonderful. They talk about they're very clear about kind of going, we really didn't like one another. The two of them are like really good pals now. They do come from very different backgrounds. It's great. I had written in my notes about the fact that they didn't like each other.
We've got something in the notes.
I'm very professional. I've got my notes here. So I did mention that's a thing. I think that the characters' dislike of each other really makes it look like there's no way these two actors could have walked on and had that element of chemistry of seeming dislike and actually dislike one another. And it amazes me that they didn't. But there was a point where they clearly almost used that. And you can talk about it being a comedy show with canned laughter. It was the 1980s. But they clearly were good enough actors that they almost kind of used that kind of skill set and those tools to play these characters that disliked each other. And there's a very interesting thing when we're talking about the kind of heart of the show is there's a point where Rimmer is they're having a bit of a go at each other. Rimmer's basically written all the notes on him to try and pass the test. And Lister's been a bit of an asshole to him. And there's a bit of back and forth. And there's just this really lovely bit. There's this lovely bit where Rimmer's about to leave and Lister actually says, no, seriously, good luck. And it just feels like it's from the heart and it feels like he meant it. And to me, it's just this really lovely split second where I almost think that I would have liked Lister less if he'd been an absolute kind of arsehole or asshole back to Rimmer back and forth. But there's just this really nice bit where there's just this spark of
that wee spark of humanity.
Because it doesn't sit well with the rest of what you learn about Lister in this episode. The fact that he would choose the cat over himself and blah blah blah.
Yeah, and that actually is like that line is the start of that whole bit because he leaves. Rimmer leaves the room. He's like, I'm in control, but he's went the wrong fucking way, to go to the exam. And then the next part of the scene is him checking that he's gone and gets the cat out to make sure it's okay and give it its milk and all that kind of stuff. So you do realise that he has a moral compass and he's got a moral code. You don't know why at this point. So like, why the fuck has he got a cat in an air vent? Yeah. What? And then you find out that it's up the duff. And you're like, right, okay, fair dues. Maybe it's just keeping it there obviously until it comes to term. And then you find out afterwards, it's not meant to be there. And it's like, and that gives it more graphic because not only is he saving the cat, it's like he's saving the unborn children of said cat that go on to become their own race.
Yeah.
Well,
And then,
that's
of
why
course, we're getting religious allegory with that.
yes,
Later on.
Lister the Stupid.
Yeah. As a cat owner, the most ridiculous part of this
Mhm.
science fiction show for me was the fact that the cat didn't meow until Rimmer left.
Yes. Unless the cat even knew Rimmer was a smeghead.
Absolutely. No, for
It
sure.
was just
No,
like,
no,
nah,
no.
I don't want to
Yeah.
deal with him. Screw you.
I'm going to Joe.
As a cat owner, I'll say the exact same thing. That was the most unbelievable part of this entire thing, that the cat would wait until
chooses
we
the
go.
right moment to meow.
We've all got cats, so we all relate to that.
Yeah, no,
phenomenal.
Yes.
I'm going to obviously kind of go through the notes that we've obviously touched upon certain things, but I will mention the fact that I just think it's wonderful that this first episode is called The End.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such. It's just a small, stupid, but clever idea to make the first episode of a show The End.
And that's I think that's the word that I would use for pretty much this entire episode. Like, yes, is some of the humor sophomoric at times? Absolutely. But it's never not clever.
Yeah.
For the entirety of the episode, it's never not clever.
There's and by the way, Chris Barry, I think, does this really well. It's the kind of visual humor. There's a really silly bit where they're talking about the kind of 34B.
Yes.
And the 34, he goes, this is a 34F, this is a 34B, and they're identical. And then looking at it, it's ridiculous. And then they bring it to a whole new level, and he doesn't mention it. He almost doubles down on it because he's giving Lister a hard time. And he looks at it and realizes that he was wrong and puts his one back, and he keeps holding Lister's.
Yeah. And that's the one he uses to try and fix it, but he still arses it up.
Yeah, no. So it's just such a kind of so you're right. It's just silly, and then it's clever with it.
It's even like there's another, like, you know how you were mentioning like the kind of throwaway lines that pick up on something. In that same scene, Lister says to Rimmer, the only reason they don't give this job to the service robots is because they've got a better union than us.
Yes.
So it shows that even the robots have realized, you guys are fucking stupid. We're not doing this. And they banded together, got a union, and the union have sided with the robots over the humans. And something that I always thought, whoa, this is proper T2 shit.
Rimmer's also outranked by every robot and on the ship, even the one that went crazy.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, it's just brilliant.
So there's loads of, and it's like 29 minutes long, and there's a ton of setup in it.
But if you think about
and
it,
they don't even get. They don't,
if you think about it, 29 minutes episode. We're at 43 minutes of this of our own episode about it, and we've barely scratched the surface of this episode. It just shows you how much there is to dissect and go into. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure if Rob Grant or ever on us be like, what the fuck are you guys smoking? None of us thought about this. We were high on cocaine. We just thought, let's get something raw. Off we go.
You guys have thought way too far into this nonsense.
Yeah. We just tried to make a sitcom about a spaceship.
Yeah. I mean, it's all the things that you don't realize until you've got it. But at the same time, something that I'll ask for, obviously, Joe's perspective, like for Holly, who is played brilliantly by comedic actor Norman Lovett, his is the very, very dry British humour. That some audiences, especially international audiences, didn't take to right away. But what did you think of the character of Holly?
So I took to it. I'm a different type of audience in this regard, because I've made comments before, but my wife is Irish and very much introduced me to a lot of this style of comedy between comedians and shows and different things like that. I remember when I was younger, the first time I was shown something like this, I can't remember exactly which show it was, but I was shown one of the more famous British comedy shows. It was so boring to me. Like I because I grew up on things like the Stooges and different things like that. So like it was all, there wasn't that sense of physicality and humor and all of that kind of stuff. Now I can appreciate something that is situational and dynamic and something like that, even if it is baked into something that's a little bit more sophomoric at points and different things like that. Like, I think it's hilarious.
I think like one of the jokes that I really loved that Holly made was, you find out that obviously the little piles of dirt around the place are all the dead crew members. And Lister's just been kind of licking them, and he's like, I'm eating half the crew. And he finds out that the woman that he carried a torch for, Kachansky, that was also dead. And he talked about how he was gonna, had this plan, go to Fiji, and she would be riding the horses, and he was gonna take care of stuff. And he just goes, she won't be used to you now, not unless it snows. You need something to grit the path with. I remember just buckling, going, whoa. Oh my God, did he actually say that? But the fact he justifies it with, I've been on my own for 3 million years and I think I've gone a bit peculiar. It does make sense. Computer senility is a real thing in this.
He does follow up as well with saying, even if she was still alive, the age difference would be just unmanageable.
Yeah.
Insurmountable.
Yeah.
Is that, so there's lots of, you're supposed to, Holly, and you find out in later episodes, Holly's supposed to be a supercomputer with an IQ of 6,000 and clearly has been affected by the fact that he's been in his own for 3 million years. But that doesn't quite happen in this episode, that you get that particular number, but it does happen. But one of the things in the show that I don't think I really noticed watching it, but after watching the in later years, is the somberness of the beginning sequence in the first 2 seasons. It's got that really kind of funereal, and you've got this almost kind of, he's doing this kind of, he's painting the side, and it's this really, there's a point where it bursts into what's almost kind of organ church music.
Yeah.
It
just crescendos
on a organ, and Joe, and that's the beginning sequence for the first 2 seasons, and then in season 3 it's got a lot punchier.
It's a more rock style theme.
It's really, for a show. I mean, I just imagine in 1988 someone saying, and starting off, we've got a new kind of TV comedy series, Red Dwarf, and then it starts with somebody painting the side of a ship, and this really, and it's got this slightly stilted stop motion animation, which I thought was very reminiscent of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's very subtle, but you've got that kind of, that kind of stop motion effect. And
did you ever see the outtake?
I will also say that for the 1980s, no.
Did you? The outtake was that they had for one was he was doing the painting, but he slips and he falls, and you don't see him again. Yes. You just see it, and that's him. He's just dropped into the depths of deep space.
That's right. So
I remember watching that thinking, I was just watching that going, imagine if they kept that in.
And that was it. No, absolutely.
Man, they just added so much dark humor to it.
Yeah, no. Imagine if, and then it just end credits, and that was it. I also really, and it shows you, obviously, it shows you the whole kind of Red Dwarf, kind of almost kind of the same way that they do in the beginning of Star Wars, with the kind of underside of the. And I think the level of detail for a low budget 1980s British sitcom using models, I thought the level of detail on the actual ship was amazing.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why every corridor was painted grey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because
their entire budget went into that model, and what a beautiful model it was.
For sure.
And it does change kind of as you go on with the series, because sadly there is a big gap between when it stops the first time and then goes again. So things do change. But one thing I also like, did you ever watch the remastered pilot episode?
I don't think so.
But
maybe
it was basically, and for Joe's reference, as so the model Red Dwarf was gone. It was a CGI Red Dwarf. There was a couple of like wee bits of deleted scenes that didn't make the original cut that were put in, and Holly was entirely reshot. Like is for the uninitiated, like Norman Lovett was in 2 series. He left. We had a different actress who played Holly from series 3 to 5. There's no Holly season 6 or most of 7, and Norman Lovett came back for season 8.
Yeah.
So when season 8 wrapped, he refilmed in his current, like at his current age, all the Holly scenes, refilmed them, and had different kind of bits in it and stuff. And it's something to check out.
I'll check it out.
Definitely. But I would personally say it spoiled it for me, in my own opinion. It took the charm away. There was a line that Norman Lovett did add in, because the scene where he's announcing the funeral.
Yep.
Lister and Rimmer like head off or whatever. And he says, like, why do I have to make these announcements when I've got an IQ of 6,000? Instead of like doing this, I could be rewriting Hamlet and making it good. And he just goes like, oh, it's not right. And I'm like,
don't need that.
Prefer the original way, but it was because it was more kitschy. But they were trying to obviously kind of give you more options with remastered stuff. And I'm just like, all right, there it is. But it's worth a watch.
It's a good time to mention, obviously, the funeral, etc. Do you not think that everything, this is the late 21st century, everything that you see in this show, Lister, it's clearly set in the 80s. Really, Lister has to basically go and get film developed in a lab in the late 21st century.
They've still got videos as well.
Still got videos. He's writing stuff in pen, and it's just. And then when you look at the fact that they've got all, you can see that they're using like BASIC on the computers. It looks like DOS or whatever. And they're doing
even
all
when
that.
They go into, see when Lister's got called to Hollister's office, when he goes up, but beforehand he's chatting up Kachansky, like Claire Grogan's character. But the room is filled with like smoke.
Yes, I did see that. Yes.
So, and that's another side of things. Like, you could smoke in a building back then. You can't do that over here now.
But I had a bit of it from that perspective as well, and the kind of the way the ship looked, had a bit of a kind of alien vibe, the Nostromo. Everything looks kind of like cobbled together and blah blah. But on the flip side of this, they've got this amazing technology where they can, to all intents and purposes, bring you back from the dead. So you've got all this stuff where it looks like someone can type in 10 print, hello, 20, go to 10, and it will sort of thing on the screens, and everything looks kind of green, and then they've got this technology where they can more or less kind of emulate your brain waves and have this what is, to all intents and purposes, a kind of virtual ghost kicking about that you can walk through. It's got this kind of hologram going things, which you later find out there's a kind of hologram drive, which is more or less like this kind of spinning bee going, flying all about, kind of almost creating this image of you, which you kind of realize, and to all intents and purposes, you can walk through stuff as you see. So they've got this really bizarre kind of archaic technology, and then they've got what is way beyond the realms of human possibility even now, this kind of hologram, which is you, to all intents and purposes, you said you can walk through stuff, and you've got the letter H emblazoned in your head, which is really kind of, so it's this strange kind of, they're still mining stuff. This is mining ship. They're going to planets and mining stuff, and they have this amazing technology that can do stuff like that, but they're still doing this most basic manual work that obviously there's robots and stuff involved, but there still needs to be this element of human interaction, and the society classes still seem to be very similar to what they are now. You're having to get stuff developed, and people are having to pass exams You've still got this kind of human hierarchy of kind of the captain and blah, blah, blah. All of this stuff, it looks like they should be in a situation where they could automate practically everything, but they don't. And it's just this weird juxtaposition.
Yeah. And the ultimate irony is it's a mining corporation. And during that time in the 80s, there was the miner strikes.
Yes.
As well. In Britain. So the ultimate irony of that was not lost on me when I did my rewatch of it. And I do like the fact that it just basically, like, in the case of like Rimmer, they did essentially pick him up straight from when he died.
Yeah.
Because what he asked, because he's instantly like, Lester, it's your fault, because if you weren't in stasis, I would have had help sealing the drive plate and I wouldn't be dead. Which is, I always thought was good, because it was like, yes, he's shouldering the blame on Lester, but he's also given him a bit of credit, saying, you're the guy who keeps me in check if I fuck up.
Yeah.
So it was a wee subtle thing. I just loved the line, what's it like? Death? Like going on holiday with a group of Germans. And I just burst out laughing. I was like, oh my, of all the things to describe death like, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Man.
Go back to Holly again. The bit where Holly's constantly reiterating the fact that everybody's dead. It's just great. The different, they're all dead. Dave, they're all dead. Everybody's dead. Dave, they're all dead. Everybody's dead. And it's just great.
Yeah.
And that stands out. And go back to Rimmer. That entire scene where Rimmer's trying to do the exam, and it's just an absolute visual kind of slapstick. Pulls his wrist up and he sees, and he's just completely out his depth. He doesn't need to say a word. It's just such a visual masterclass.
Yeah. It just also shows the mental fragility of Rimmer as well. Like he just puts way too much pressure on himself to try and be something that he's not. Yeah. Because in one of the Red Dwarf books, like you find out that like Rimmer's not a smart guy, but he is a brilliant artist. He's a brilliant graphic designer. Because he spends so much time making a study timetable, and figuring out how to manage his diet and how to things, makes all this kind of great graphic stuff, and then realizes, crap, I've got like a night to get all of this done.
That's right. No,
to study for this. By the time he gets it all done, so it's a case of he's a creative. He's just pushed in the wrong direction from the get-go. But he doesn't have the mental stability to cope with it. So that's why when he's trying to do stuff like that, and he's like, no, I can't do it. And he just is like, I relate to it more now that I've got mental health issues. He just straight up had a panic attack. He was like, I'm out of my depth. I don't know what I'm doing. Bang, slams the hand down, signs it, passes out. And it's the fact that Todd Hurt just looks up and goes, it's Rimmer. Back to it again. It's like they've been through this dance 11, 12 times by this point. They know that's what he's going to do, but we'll just get the meds. Off we go.
I genuinely think that's why Rimmer's my favourite character. I really like him. Is the fact that even though he obviously comes off as a complete asshole in a lot of respects, I actually relate so much to him. I've got a day job as a data analyst. I've got a night job as a comedian. I can tell you when I enjoy most. I can tell you when I probably have to put more time into. And unfortunately, I'm heading more in the direction of the kind of analytical stuff, which is worthwhile in itself. I don't want to, especially if any of my bosses are watching. Hello. Obviously I do get something.
Hey, my bosses are watching. Fuck you, smegheads.
So I do enjoy my day job, but also clearly there's this need for this kind of, I'm aware of the fact that my heart lies in other directions, and that's what I do to pay the bills and make sure the kids are fed and clothed and blah, blah, blah. But I also need to, and I suppose the tragedy is the fact that he just wants to be better and more important than he thinks he is. And it's a show about that. There's a lot of kind of, and they say that about comedy, isn't it? It's tragedy plus time. There's a ton of tragedy in that show. And Lester goes from being the least important person on the ship to potentially the most important human in the universe.
Yeah. To at some point, potentially, as we get to the end of the episode, he's potentially revered as a god.
Yes.
Like, because at the end, like when he's talking to the cat, and they've got to like figure that out, and he's like, they're like, yo, did you see Frankenstein? Like, aye, she was your great grandmother or something. He's like, the virgin birth. Like, and there's just the parallels with all like the Old Testament, New Testament. So he's talking so they're going over that, like, and Lister's essentially Jesus. It's like, because he gives the life so that the cat's society can live and evolve. And he's like, it's Cloister the stupid. He's like, no, it's Lister the stupid. And he's like, wait, stupid? And it's like he's going to return and lead us to Fushal, the promised land. He's like, no, it's Fiji. And that's where we're going.
Yeah.
Like, and that's like, you'll plot a course, off we go. Like, so throughout all that, and you're getting those subtle religious parodies there, like, of, what it is, but it's never like in a disrespectful way, because it was the 80s. You would have got crucified for that if you did it that way.
Yeah.
But it just shows you the kind of thing. It was like the subtlest of changes shape an entire society. Like, you find out later on as well, because they do an episode in this first series, like, Joe, where they do analyze this in a bit more detail of how the cat religion came about and how these things kind of influence their society. And it's a really, really strong episode, a really good episode, and some really strong acting as well.
Yeah, there's a definite kind of heart to it, and there's I remember feeling I'm actually looking forward to revisiting it.
Definitely. That's one of the best things about doing these things is like, I put up a post about that today, is like, one of the things I love about this job is that I get to go and say to my wife, right, I'm going to watch a season of Thomas. And she's like, why? And I was like, because I got to review it for my channel. Otherwise, we don't get paid. Well, and she's like, I fucking hate you. I'm like, I know you do. And it's great. I could just go, right, I get my wee mini DVD player down here. I put on Red Dwarf Series 1. I'm killing myself laughing. She thinks, why is he not looking for a real job? And I'm like, I'm doing my real job. I'm doing my research.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And it was why I always loved being an actor, because my homework was watching TV.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's why when I first got into
sorry. No, I interrupted you. I apologize. And you go.
That's why I first got into doing broadcasting. The whole first couple of months that I got paid for was watching guys like Richard Pryor and Andrew Dice Clay, and watching old Muhammad Ali promos, and listening to old radio broadcasts and different things like that, because that's where I learned the gig. That's where I learned how to do this, and to comment on the religious thing, being a pastor who's been accused of being very critical towards Christianity. I thought it was cleverly done. I stand by the fact that at no point in this did they venture off the world of being clever in the way that they were doing it. It doesn't take anything clever to say that some of the people who practice Christianity are screwed 3 ways from Sunday. Yeah, there are people who seriously screw the pooch when practicing these things. That's not funny. That's just an unfortunately truthful statement.
Yeah.
It was just the way you delivered it was brilliant for stand-up comedy, my friend.
So funny side story, John. I was vibing real hard with what you had said, because I tried exactly one time to do comedy, and I do MC gigs all the time, be it virtually or in person and all that kind of stuff. Oh my God, I bombed. I went over like a lead fucking balloon. I was so bad. Like I could, just because I think honestly, one of the biggest things I got in my own head, and like I felt like I needed to create the moment rather than just allowing the moment to come. Whereas when you're hosting something, the rest of the people, they've all done the hard work. They've created the moment for you. You're just riding the wave while you're up there.
I agree with that completely.
Yeah. And I totally get about the being in your own head thing, because like the amount of times that I've done like a gig with John, and I'm not saying anything positive about myself. I'm putting myself down constantly, because I'm like, I was shit. The audience didn't react to that joke or this joke or this joke. I would give myself this mark out of 10 or whatever. And John's like, what the fuck are you talking about, mate? You done well. But
yeah, we're the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same, but it's the same kind of thing. It's like, and I get in my own head too much with it because I think like behind the mic and we're just talking like this. I know I'm a funny fuck. I don't give a shit. I'm like, okay, I'll just fire at a joke here because I'm around friends. If I make a joke, who cares?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter. Like, I trust these guys. But the second I'm on the stage, it's just like all of a sudden everyone just collapses. And I'm like, okay, I have to actually try and make these people laugh. And I'm like, okay, how do I do that? And then I just remember one of the days I was like, just don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like if they laugh, they laugh. If they don't, they don't. And that's what I just did. That's why when I go on now and John see that, I just go, all right. And it's just, at that point, you know, you're getting set up for, I don't care if you laugh. I'm doing my set. I'm going to enjoy it. Bye.
Do you know, there's a line you have to just go up there and do what you want, and you don't let them get in your head, and you don't kind of care what's happening, but you can't have it cross over to the because if you go too far in that direction and you almost stop caring about the audience.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't care about the potential audience reaction, but if you stop caring about the audience, there's no point being up there, because at the end of the day, that's kind of who you. So you almost kind of go, well, if you're so anxious about whether they're going to enjoy it that you're not enjoying it, then there's a problem. But if you go up there and see, you can walk off stage going, that maybe didn't work, and how can I improve that? But if you walk up on stage going, this is going to go or so I've seen people go up and they almost don't give a shit that there's an audience there, and that's fine at a point. But if you're just also kind of going, well, then do you know what? You may as well have just stood in a room on your own and screamed at the wall. But you need to do something that you think the audience will like, but it's not the end of the world if they maybe don't get it.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's a really hard tightrope to walk. It's really not. But when you break it down to that kind of level, it sounds insurmountable. I want them to enjoy it, but it's not the end of the world if they don't. Because the worst thing is if you're expecting a laugh and you don't get it, and then you go, shit, what do I do next?
Yeah.
And you need to almost, you need to train yourself to go, well, do you know what? I can stand here and go, oh, and it's the end of everything. Or I can just bounce to the next bit and hope that works. And that's tough. And in a certain frame of mind, and Andrew's seen me perform loads of times, in a certain frame of mind, I can go, but I'm also in a situation where if it does happen, I try to do as good a job as possible of not standing on stage and going, and I just internally go,
Most of the time when you do that, you just take your shirt off and everybody laughs anyway.
I just take my shirt off and hope for the best.
But there actually was a point, like, to relate to Red Dwarf, where I was talking about, is that all these actors came from different various comedic backgrounds. Craig Charles had tried to be a comedian. It did not work.
Yep.
But then he also tried to do poetry. And he had a really good poem, and it was called Racially Insensitive Word, Don't Show Bruises. And it's such a hard-hitting poem, but it was fantastically read. But let's say Danny John Jules was more known for serious acting at that point in time as well. But Chris Barry, he had done a lot of kind of physical comedy. He had also done he'd done a lot of voiceovers for, what was that show that he'd done, and it was like all the puppets that made fun of all the politicians in the 80s.
Spitting Image,
yeah, because he done a lot of that as well. And Norman Lovett was a stand-up comedian, one very well established at this point too. So there was lots of different comedic backgrounds as well, where you thought, okay, what in the case of obviously Craig Charles and Danny John Jules trying something they hadn't done before, but it did not look like they were out their depth at all. It was like they'd done lives. Whereas Chris Barry, he'd been playing comedy all his life, and he was playing the more straight-laced arsehole. And he plays that part now for like 30 odd years.
Yeah. Had the British Empire come out at that point?
It hadn't come out at that point. I think it was early 90s that it came out. I think it was about third, fourth season of Red Dwarf, because that's why Ace Rimmer got wrote into the into when later series, because Chris Barry was like, give me something else, something else to do, or I walk, because I'm getting typecast as this stick in the mud like character. Thus, it was reread. It was redone, and we got this character out of it at that point. But yeah, so it's just so ironic though. It's like you look back at Spitting Image and you hear some of the accents that he does and the impersonations and how good he is, and then you look at Rimmer and you're like, wow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's actually, and there's a terrible example of it in this episode, but there are other episodes where Rimmer, Chris Barry, does very good impressions of all the other cast members.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't get into any detail, Joe. I'm aware of the fact that we've now been talking about this 30-minute show for 70 minutes. But he does this, but he does a very bad impersonation of Lister in this episode, and it's by far the weakest caricature that he does throughout the rest. There's lots of other situations where you'll hear Chris Barry do impressions of other cast members, and it's so much better. And I think that's one of slightly falls flat.
Yeah, I think maybe it was just like more a case of it was just maybe just getting used to the ropes of filming for a comedy, like a TV comedy, rather than at that point having to hide behind, basically stick a hand up a puppet's backside. Yeah, which was what it was. But when you got to the end as well, I really liked it at the end of the show because he does the whole like plot of course for Fiji. Look out, the slime's coming home, and it comes up with the beginning. The beginning, absolutely. It's a great end. Yeah, and it just totally flips it and literally flipped the script. Yep. It starts off with everything going to shit, and then you've got here's the new sense of purpose, and this is what's going to be going forward. And it's weird going into this show. We're probably wrapping up now that you've mentioned the fact that the episode, but it's weird. You go into this show and they pretty much set up a completely different show in the first 20 minutes, and then they pull the rug from under you, and suddenly it's not about this ensemble cast on a spaceship. Yeah. It's about basically 3 people with a ship's computer 3 million years into the future, considering how they're going to try and get home. And that's quite... Yeah. And if there even is a home. Yeah. So you spend 20 minutes thinking it's going to be the ship's captain, Mac McDonald. You're going to have this. You're going to have this very different dynamic. They introduce a love interest. Yeah. And then they kill everyone. Yeah. Including the love interest. Yeah. And the ultimate irony is she's still his love interest for the rest of the show, even though she's dead. Spoiler alert for the deed chick at the start of the episode. Absolutely. But so you plumb further into it in further episodes about you kind of get into it. Holly tries to justify why he brought Rimmer back. That's going to come up in a future episodes. There's a lot of kind of interesting stuff. The first two seasons are real character studies, and the dynamic of the show does shift from season 3 onwards. But at that point, you've become comfortable with these characters. You know exactly who they are, and you don't need to do such an in-depth character study, but you still get a very good insight into how they react to certain situations, and that's where it really kind of comes into play. The first 2 seasons of Red Dwarf are very different to the subsequent ones. Yeah, and it's a good thing as well because they make a habit of like constantly kind of pulling the rug from under you, whether it's the terms of how they do the staging or a certain event happens that changes the dynamic of the show on the outside. But the core of it is still the same. It's still dudes trying to get home. Yep. It's like the 3 million year bender. Yeah. Well, they're just trying to get home from one of the worst hangover nights out that they've had. Walk of shame. Yes, the 3 million year walk of shame. I think that's what we should call this episode. But it's been good, and it was really good introducing you to a new show, Joe, and it was really nice to meet you also. Yeah. I hope you'll come back. Yes, I have thoroughly enjoyed this, Joe. I've really enjoyed this because it's been so long since I've got to talk about Red Dwarf with anybody. And the fact we're getting to introduce a newbie to this world, it's just brilliant.
Yeah, these are my favorite types of shows to do, where you just open the mic and shoot the shit and go from there. But yeah, this is one that I am very excited to dig into. It's funny to me, such a show. You wouldn't think. I always talk about how for an IP, when I'm trying out an IP for the first time, you have me if you can make me feel like this is a world that is lived in, right? That there's stuff going on outside of the realm of what's in front of the camera. And this show does that.
Yeah.
This show makes me feel like there's things going on outside of just what the camera is picking up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's actually a very interesting bit, which I don't think I noticed when I watched it when I was younger, but I noticed when I rewatched it for this. There's something that happens at the reintroduction of the guy who died. That is almost kind of throwaway. It doesn't happen on screen, and you hear something, and then there's a point, I think maybe even in season 2, where you realize that that's the way that Lister and his friends interact with one another.
Yes.
You know the bit I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
I won't ruin it for Joe, but there's just almost this stuff that didn't. It almost, when you were rewatching it, if you didn't have that knowledge, you're kind of going, "What happened there? What was that noise?"
Yeah, definitely.
You're absolutely right. There's even little kind of silly throwaway things like when the hologram guy who's not Rimmer does his speech.
George McIntyre.
George McIntyre's got his kind of he's almost vibing off all these people. It's almost like a best man speech. And you get this insight into people that it really doesn't matter because they're all going to be dead within the next 5 minutes, and it does create this atmosphere, and then it almost goes around from you. You're absolutely right. It just feels like when a character, sometimes you watch stuff and a character walks off the scene, and sometimes it's like they bleep out of existence. But in this, you can actually imagine they're going off to do something else. Yeah, for sure.
And the irony of it all is these characters are in like one episode, like all the ones that are in like the step ensemble. But guys like me who watched it growing up, we always remember their names like they were part of the core cast for all these years. Like, like you've got Captain Hollister, Todd Hunter, you've got George McIntyre who died. And you find out so much about him in one speech is that he was a bit of a hoormaster. Because he's like, he's like, don't think of someone that's dead, like but is no longer a threat to your marriage. And he goes, aye, Joe knows what I'm talking about. So it's like, aye, before I died, I banged your wife. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on here? But it felt so lived in, and you remember names like Kachansky and stuff as well. You just remember them all.
You do get the occasional flashback into to these people when they're alive, but it is very occasional. To all intents and purposes, the rest of the show is about a core of 3, 4, potentially 5 people. Kind of moving on, not going into kind of too much detail, but you do get the occasional thing happening, whether it's related to time travel or flashbacks, or maybe just something happening in terms of holograms and stuff. You do get into, but it's very rare, and it's as I said earlier on, it's almost a MacGuffin to push character development forward for this core of people. It's never about, don't be expecting in 4 episodes' time we've got the chance to go back in time and save Red Dwarf. It's not going to happen. It's not that kind of show. It's all certain things that are designed to, and like all good fiction is, the story's almost secondary. It's about how people react to certain criteria, situations. And on that note,
we'll do the little bits of wrap up. So first of all, Joe, obviously you have a channel as part of Ginger Media Limited, so give that a plug.
Yeah, so you can find the show on YouTube at Shell Shock, a TMNT series. We are covering all things TMNT. I just put out a couple of rankings of the different series and movies, and coming up here, we're going to cover the crossover comic with the Turtles and the Power Rangers, and cover the different lore, different things like that. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well at Shell Shock.
Yep. And John, obviously this is your your first show as part of Ginger Media Limited. So that also all the links and stuff will be in the descriptions below. But how have you found being part of the Ginger Media family?
Oh, I loved it. I've done some stuff with you before, Andrew, which was always great fun, and it's just refreshing. It's just refreshing to chat to people and have a bit of a laugh, just discover common ground and just enjoy yourself, which I think this is what this is all about. Because if we're sitting here and we turn this into an essay or a dissertation and we're not enjoying it, then how can we expect anybody that's watching it to enjoy it too? It's been I can't think of two people. I haven't just met Joe tonight. I can't think of two people I'd rather have been doing this with tonight. It was great fun. I really loved it. I'm also really loving Joe's poster there of the Joker in the background. That's very cool. We'll have a conversation about that offline. But no, I've loved it.
It's just a smorgasbord of why we love him.
Excellent. No, I'm keen to explore that and discover more about that too. It's been great. I really enjoyed it. I love chatting to you. It was good fun. It never felt like a chore.
No, I don't. That's what we try and do. Just if you're not having fun, what's the point in doing it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. If you give me 30 seconds to put over Ginger Media, I have been a part of a lot of different media projects over the years. I've done a lot of things on my own with other people, all of that kind of stuff. This came as a breath of fresh air. So if this is your first Ginger Media show that you've caught, strap in, check out the rest of the shows under this umbrella, because it's a whole lot of people who love what they do, who love what they're talking about. It's a lot of authentic conversations, and there's a lot of spots where you can spend your time talking about different nerd stuff, different IPs, different stuff that covers different things. There's a lot of that on YouTube. But what you're going to get here is a bunch of real people talking about things they're actually passionate about, and not trying to give you an hour and a half long mosaic about why this is the greatest show to ever do this, that, or the other thing. Like the first 10 minutes were us just shooting the shit, laughing, and it just didn't stop from there. You know what I mean?
Thanks, man. I'm actually getting a bit teary for that one. Thank you.
Andrew, I'd advise you to actually just take that as a kind of snapshot of this and put that separately on YouTube somewhere, because I think that was perfect and very succinct.
It was.
To the point.
It was.
And
thank you so much.
Also keep it on this because it makes my show look better. However, and you could also, but I think that kind of comment there from Joe could exist as a separate monologue, as long as you also link this show to it. That'd be wonderful. So that I can take some form of credit.
Well, we are doing testimonials, so it'll definitely be clipped. Joe, that was so touching. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Right, so John, sign us off in the only way that you know how, my friend.
Okay, excellent. Guys, this has been Space Corp Directive 17412. It's been a pilot episode. It was my absolute pleasure to be with Joe and Andrew today. I have no idea if my hands are even pointing in the right direction.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Well done.
We will see you very soon for what is the second of many, many episodes to come. Take care. Good night, smegheads.
Smeggers.